Thank you so much for joining me today for the Demystifying Money podcast. I'm your host, Misty Lynch, and today I'm joined by my friend Stoy Hall. He's another certified financial planner. He's a CEO and owner of Black Mammoth. Thank you so much, Stoy, for joining me today.
Well, thank you for having me on. By the way, I love the name of your podcast. It's so clever. Like that. Like the first
Thank
time I saw
you.
it, I was like, "Oh, her name. Oh, I got it now. That's amazing."
It's funny. Yeah, no, when I was working in corporate, I was doing some financial, workshops and things like that. And some of the smarter people in the marketing team were like, we should call it Demystifying Money. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I have such a silly name. Like I don't want to make fun of it anymore. Like I feel like everyone's gonna be like, oh, you're ridiculous. Needless to say, later on, I was just like, okay, learn from the clever people.
Yeah.
And so when I wrote my book, I put in the dedication to thank them for actually being more clever than me with my spreadsheets and calculators over here. So, but I'm glad you like it. Yes. So, well, what we want to talk about really is demystifying money, and there's a lot of things that a lot of people, think about when it comes to money, and a lot of it starts when we're very young. So, I'd love to hear a little bit more about you. What money was like for you growing up, and what kind of led you into this career path and wanting to help people build wealth.
Yeah, absolutely. Originally just born and raised in Omaha, Nebraska. Some people call it a big little city, little big city, whatever you want to call it. But growing up, I had separate mother and father living situation. And my grandparents really raised me majority of the time. And the reason for that is because my mother worked like 12-hour shifts overnight. And growing up, I never, until about the age of 12, I never knew much about our money situation, right? I knew that I got toys and I had birthday parties and I was in sports and all of those things as a child that you don't recognize and see. And then when I got to around 12 and I was starting to look into wanting my own money, wanting to be able to do other things, I started to recognize that we had a money issue in our family, and not from a like an actual income perspective, but like more of a true understanding of what money is, right? Overspending, not saving, not budgeting things, buying toys and buying frivolous things. And I really started to understand that I didn't like that, right? I didn't want to live that way. I wanted to be able to travel and do these things that everyone sees everywhere. And so I recognize that relatively young, that we have that in our family, and no one really talked about it either. Right now, that is, some people say that's a cultural thing from a black community. Some people that says that's just how it is. For me, it's more of the socioeconomic divide, right? The poor people, if you will, that mindset and conversation is very much similar to any black, brown, etc. It's more about the income level, and it comes down to overall education or literacy, whatever you want to call it. And so I recognize that very, very young. So I knew I needed to go to college, be the first one in my family to go to college, let alone graduate. And for me, sports was my way out, right? Most young black boys in general, sports is probably going to be your ticket. So I ended up going to Drake University to play football there, and I wanted to be in finance. So I thought I wanted to be in accounting because that's where back then we had that, I don't know what test it was, but like it showed you what career path you should be on.
Yep.
Mine was accounting. And then I took my first accounting exam and got a 40% and said, we're good.
Yeah, we had an accounting class, I think in high school or something, one of the business classes I took, which we were lucky to have like business kind of um some classes offered to us. And I liked accounting because I was like, oh, I'm good with this. Like this makes sense to me, the numbers. But then in college, I was like, no, no, no.
No,
This
no,
may not
not
be
it.
the future, but
Me too. So then I switched over to finance with a minor in business law and insurance, and really fell in love with that process of finances, right? And saving and how it all works. But at the same time, I was working at the Boys and Girls Club right off campus, and I think my title was Professional Teen Development Officer. How fancy of a title for basically being, a babysitter for the teens. But I recognize that they're going through the same things that I went through when I was younger, right? Where, you don't have the best clothes, you wear the same shoes, you really try to eat as much as you can at school. And I started to recognize all of those same things. And I started asking questions and figuring things out. Luckily, I had a data that I could go through with, their household and all of that. And I recognized that the issue is financial education. And I don't mean it like it being a math class in school, albeit it should be. And a lot of states are changing that, so it should be just like math or science or history. However, I mean it more from a family's perspective, a legacy thing, right? Um, that's where our society does really, really poorly at, and that is talking about money,
Yeah,
right? The ultra
definitely.
wealthy do, by the way. The
Oh,
ultra
of
wealthy do.
course. Yeah.
They talk about it and they pass it down, and you don't see them going broke very often, right?
Right.
But that's not what the rest of us do. From middle class down, by the way,
Mhm.
right? We really just don't talk about it. It's very uncomfortable.
Right.
And that's really what started to drive me to get into this industry, because I wanted to change that message. I
Hmm.
wanted for it to be okay. And that's really how I started. And then I got into insurance, went the whole insurance sales route, which
Hmm.
was good. It's good backbone. But I knew quickly that I needed to get into the planning side. And since then, I've changed my mindset from how traditional planning works with investments, etc., to more of this modern family office that we roll with at Black Mammoth now.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. There's a lot of things that you said. I think I agree when it comes to, financial literacy. Like it's not necessarily even intelligence or being good at math. It is so much more to that I feel and I'm not sure if you're seeing this too, but I was just seeing reports out like 62% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. This is increasing. These numbers are going up, and I get it because I understand, from when we were growing up, like eating, missing field trips, wearing clothes that you didn't want. I knew I wanted a different situation for myself, personally, which kind of got me on the same track like you did. I'm going to go to school. I'm going to get I'm going to get paid. I'm
Right.
going to figure it out. Because I knew like some people had it lived different, like there wasn't not everyone felt this way, but now I'm starting to feel like this is starting to just feel like we're in this, this boiling pot that's just getting warmer and warmer, and everyone's just okay, well, everyone's in debt, everybody is living paycheck to paycheck, nobody is happy, everyone is anxious about money, where it feels very abnormal to not be,
Yeah.
or to decide to take control of it, unless you are somebody who is in that high net worth, ultra wealthy, where it is more comfortable to say, okay, this is something I need to figure out, or what should I do in this situation when it comes to taxes, to income, to building income streams. And so I think that it's interesting to see that sometimes it's just the light going off in a particular person to say like, no, I actually don't like this feeling. I don't want to feel this way anymore. But there is a lot of work that we have to do when it comes to getting people to actually see that there could potentially be a different way. So I'm curious when you mentioned, the family office. Can you tell the listeners kind of what you mean when it comes to a family office? I think, anybody that's listening to the show understands what a financial planner might do, investments. But tell me more about the family office, because I think that's a really interesting way to go about helping your clients.
Yeah, absolutely. And family office, like some people might Google it, but like the true back end of a family office is usually relatively private, right? And that's because ultra wealthy have set these up for ever, literally ever. So the whole concept of a family office is there is a team, right? Usually made up of attorneys, investment advisors, CPAs, you name it, maids. It doesn't matter, like literally anything and everything that is hired by this unit. They call it a family office because usually it's for one family, but you can have multiple families in this thing. And really, what they do is they take care of everything else that's going around the family, right? As much as paying all their bills, setting their travel, grocery shopping, taking kids around, doing everything so that the family can live how they want to, focus on family time. And then, obviously, if there's a business involved, making them money, and then on top of making them money, making sure their money is making them money, right? So that's a very simplistic way of saying what a family office is, but all the ultra wealthy do it. Name one, name a billionaire, they have a family office. You might not know about it, you might not hear about it because a lot of them are private, but that's what's going on, right? They're the ones setting up the structures, the foundations, putting things in trusts, moving houses around, doing all of those things. It's not the person. It's not, it's their vision. It might be that conversation. But ultimately, that's what a family office does. And then it takes that and it builds it into the whole legacy of the family, right? And it creates this legacy of generational wealth that will never go away because really the person and the people running it is this family office. This team is making the best decisions for the family overall to make sure their wealth never goes away and it just keeps growing. So that's what I mean by family office. Now I say modern family office because I believe that concept, right, that global concept can be whittled down to everyday business owners and entrepreneurs. I eventually want it to everybody. I
Yeah.
think everybody should have at least a part of that surface in their life because it does so much more for you than, hey, I'm just going to take care of your investments. Because I'll say this till the day I die, investments don't mean anything if you have nothing to invest.
Right.
0 times a 1,000,000% return is
Yeah.
still zero.
Right.
So if you can't handle it and you can't get it
Mhm.
under control to get it to this, then having an investment advisor, someone who's good with investments, means nothing.
Yeah, and I think that it's an interesting concept, and I think there's a lot of people who, they don't run their finances like a business. There's a lot of business owners that don't run their finances like a business.
That's true.
Is they might be really good at what they do. They might be very skilled at their service, or maybe they have a product or something that is what they understand, what they know. But understanding all of the other pieces that are involved in building wealth that actually lasts for more than one lifetime, that takes a team of people looking at all of the different ways besides just growing sales or
Yeah.
numbers. And so I think that's an interesting concept. And I think when I started working, for myself, building a team, finding people that knew things better than I did was the first thing that I started paying for. And it was worth it. But I do think that some people, especially those who have built wealth over generations and protect it and keep it, um, that is that's all of everybody does that.
Mhm.
Right? I mean, instead of trying to figure out how to be an expert in all of these different areas. So I love that idea. I definitely can see how that can be beneficial. And how do you partner with people? Who do you choose to work with when it comes to, you know, certain needs that maybe go beyond the scope of the planning world? How do you choose that?
Absolutely. Vet them out. I have a lot of conversations with a lot of people, right? Luckily, I can use, like my podcast as a way to help vet them. Or I'm just meeting with them because of my client needing a certain thing, right? So the need comes up and I'm going out and I'm vetting them. I'm interviewing them because my clients are saying, I trust you. You're the one running it. I want this to get done. Okay, fine. I'm going to find the best way to get it done, right? Because as a planner or in my realm as the Modern Family Office, I'm less of like pushing buttons and pushing trades. I am moving parts and pieces to get people aligned to get the things that are supposed to be done and making sure they get done. And so vetting people out is really a lot of what I do, which helps me learn a lot, right? Uh, going through the CFP, which I failed twice, by the way, had to take it the third time to get it. You learn a lot, but what they don't teach you in school, what they don't teach you in the CFP is real world experience. Right? That is something that they can't teach because you have to have boots on the ground. You have to have years of service and learning. And what is nice about vetting all these people out and learning is, now I'm learning. I'm able to become better at what I do. And it helps me then vet these people out even more so. And so, what types of people are we vetting out? Mortgage lenders, lenders in general, right? We do a lot of car buying for our clients. So I'm car salesman. Other advisors, right? Because I'm not always pushing the buttons on the money. That's okay. There's advisors who have their niche. That's awesome. We need to partner together. Obviously, accountants and CPAs, attorneys, because there's so many of them in different ones. Insurance agents, right? Realtors, you name it. That's who we're looking at, and that's what we're vetting out because it needs to be done for the client. So that's what a lot of time goes into is trying to figure out the right person and uh, being able to present that to the client, being like, hey, this is the route we're going to go.
Mhm.
I'm going to lead it through it, but we're going to get that, like I have a client right now who emailed me is like, hey, this land popped up in Tennessee. Can you look at it? Took a look at it and said that is not part of our plan right now, but I will get in touch with that realtor to make sure they know where we're at with the plan. Like, that's
Yeah.
super simple.
Well, and I think that is, a lot of opportunities, and even our clients might be in different locations, different states, different thing, where I do think that a lot of times people do want that one-stop shop, that Amazon of thing, where they could say, "Oh, well, I also want to do this. Do you do that?" Or can you do my taxes for me? Can you do this for me? And so for a lot of small business owners, the answer is no. This is what I do. This is all that I do. So I think that it's interesting to have that approach to say like, well, we'll recognize what you need and then help figure out the person to help you do that, which takes a lot of stress off of your clients' minds, having to find or figure out what they need and then figure out who can actually get it done for them. So I can see how that could be a very lucrative offer to clients saying like, listen, this is not the, you know, we don't do everything like you don't do everything yourself for your clients, but you can help them figure it out because there is so much more to building wealth than making money, making smart decisions, getting the insurance in place that you need, figuring out all the different ways that, even with real estate, a lot of people have their ways that they are curious about building wealth, but there's actually multiple different ways or different things that people could benefit from. So I think that's a really cool concept. And how can we take some of those thoughts about a family office and bring that down to maybe somebody who doesn't necessarily have that wealthy but is trying to build it? What are some of the key things that you think people can get into place or can explore when they're trying to think of all the things without getting overwhelmed that they
Yeah,
might?
yeah, absolutely. And that's where the modernization comes with it, right? There's different tiers to this. Every one of, and if you guys go back and listen to the 12 Days of Giving series that we did towards the end of last year on No BS podcast, every one of those planners, by the way, has, in my opinion, some sort of modern family office because every one of you does something extra in the planning perspective that you do that for, right? You are figuring things out for them. That's really all it comes down to. And so for me, I tell everyone you need to hire a planner, the one that fits you, of course, but you need to have a confidant, some person, I don't care if it's a coach, consultant, whatever you want to call them, that is able to, you're able to go to them and say, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I'm wanting to do, right? And bounce those ideas off of that person who can then go figure out if that's even feasible, go learn more about it, do whatever for you, because otherwise it's going to take your time away from things that are important, right? Specifically business owners, or even just individuals. Your family is going to be number one, usually. Your business is going to be number two. Where do you have time to go learn about XYZ? You don't. You don't, or you're going to stay up late trying to figure it out. You're going to do whatever it is. You need to have that person that you trust with everything and let them do their job of figuring out and getting the pieces to the puzzle to fit, not solely on you. And that really word comes down to delegate, right? Delegate.
Yeah, and I think delegation is something, I was in a networking meeting this morning and everyone, so a few people are talking about like, I need to now learn QuickBooks. Now they were not bookkeepers, where you would need to learn QuickBooks or I'm like, they were all, and I think it, and I don't want to say this in a way that seems insulting when it comes to business, but I feel like there's a lot of things that we can do that feel like work, that feel like progress. But and we can be very busy and our time can be very, our calendar can be full of all the things that we need to learn where it's safe. We're not at that point when we're learning, granted, yes, there was a lot of things I had to learn how to do myself just to like start out, you know?
Right.
But then I think when you get to a certain a certain point in business where it can feel safe to say, okay, well, maybe one more designation, maybe one more skill I could pick up and learn. That's not really if you were running it like a
Mhm.
business, like a larger corporate, you would say, no, no, that is this person's job. This is your job. This is the thing that you should be doing. So I do think I think it's interesting to see how people can start to maybe find space to delegate, maybe really look at how they're spending their time, what's the best use of their time, how much of their family's time are they sacrificing to learn things that they could maybe, and it's hard to put a dollar value on that, but there are certain things where you can say, "Okay, no, it would actually only cost me this to do this," or maybe I could just get Calendly and have my appointments go on my or oh, there's things that we could do. So I love the idea of delegating, because I do feel like a lot of people, will overwhelm themselves with having to learn it all when there's somebody out there who can just do it faster.
Yeah, but you can't do any of that until you know who you are, right? You
Mhm.
your mental health is, and literally was talking to my therapist yesterday about this. In today's society, money and mental health are very much intertwined. It is no longer, I don't want to say back in the old days, but basically back in the old days, there was people who would barter and live, and there still is today. But there's a lot more now where money and your mental health are integrated. And what do I mean by that? Every decision you make involves money, one way or another. And so with that, there's a stressor. There's two stressors, right? If I'm happy, good to go, don't have to worry about anything, and I blow a tire, now I'm thinking about money and I'm worrying about money, and I just ruined a really, really good day or happiness or whatever. And so if you don't have those two things aligned or at least working on them, then it is hard to delegate, right? It is really hard to say, I need to pay that person to do that when, oh, I can just do it. It really is hard to grow in terms of both with your own education and your business because you're always thinking, well, what if this happens? Is this shoe going to drop? Is this thing going to happen? And it really comes down to integrating those two things. And I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't ever want to go down and go more schooling in that route. But there's a lot of ones that we are. And now our duty and our job has a lot of therapy part in it nowadays. That's why the CFP added behavioral in it. Like it's a lot to do with more about your day to day decisions and how you are making those decisions and what they're about than it is saying, yes, you actually, it's feasible to buy that for $10 because you have $15 in the bank account. Like the numbers are the numbers. They are what they are. But if we can't get you to get your mindset and your mental health under control, then that's where everyone runs into issues, including
Definitely.
myself.
Oh yeah, no, I think there's a good reason why a lot of us do have therapists or have coaches and things like because it is yeah, once you figure out the money part and the money problems are pretty easy to solve because usually money will solve them. Like, okay, if there is something you can outsource and you know that you don't enjoy doing it and you don't feel like you have to be a hero and do everything yourself
Right.
because that's just the way it's always been, then, being able to identify those things and realize that your mental health or your time or even having some time to just not be busy has a value,
Yep.
and it's important, but I do think that it is a struggle for a lot of people to kind of understand that, there there is there are ways that we can protect our mental health and our energy as business owners without feeling like, "But I have to do it all." I have to if I'm not working 60 hours a week and doing a cold plunge to get up at 5 in the morning, like, there are ways to do, all of the things, in a way that kind of feels right for you, but it takes a lot of work to kind of identify those things. So, I think it's something that if you are a burnt out business owner, you're somebody who feels like, "I don't know what's going on. I'm busy. I'm frazzled." I think, and this is something that you wrote about very recently, one of the easiest, most tactical ways to kind of get a handle of things is to look at your budget, which is a pretty, it's kind of a tough word. A lot of people just hate it. They feel like it's restriction. They don't feel like, that having some, some boundaries, some goals and ideas in place, that structure can be very liberating. But I'm curious your take on that. So if somebody is, maybe they're at the point in their life, maybe it's a new year, they want it to be a big year, or they want to feel successful, they want to protect their mental health. They understand that just even if you have a big paycheck, living paycheck to paycheck is stressful. And it is very hard mentally to always trying to be doing the math. How am I going to make this work here and do this? How do you suggest that people start to take a look at budgeting and maybe a way of doing it that feels right to them if this is something that they've avoided for a very long time?
Yeah. First and foremost, get your mind right, right? And that is we've and you alluded to it, and we've spoke about it a couple times, is you need to run your personal finances like a business. You need to make it more of a business decision and less of your emotional one. And you can blame that business, right? That's usually what I try to do and have my clients blame me for their budget decisions, is because if you can easily say, no, that's because the business doesn't allow it, right? It's easier for you to make that decision. And that's a very easy way to start the process. Now, it's not great long term, probably for your mental health therapists out there. Correct me if I'm wrong, but at least it gets you started, right? And that's the whole purpose of this podcast, my podcast. We want you to take a step forward. So a step forward would be my budget now is a business and I need to operate it like one, meaning whatever's on there is because the business says I have to do it, right? Then I want you to go for the last 3 months. It'd be great if you could do your 12 months and just take the average of all your categories and your bills, right? So your shopping, take the average, do all of those averages. When you get that down, you'll start to recognize that there's averages in there or there's things in there that you haven't used that are on autopilot or you didn't know you spent a little bit more on. And I want you to highlight those. Typically, I found there's 3 to 4 of them. Okay. And once you highlight those, then you can kind of go in and nitpick a little bit. Usually, what happens is there's 2 categories that always light up. And I'll be excited to see what your response to this one is too. Those 2 categories are shopping and grocery, or shopping and then grocery slash eating out. Okay.
Definitely.
Some people
Definitely.
call them 3 categories, and I'll explain why I call them two, but there's 2 categories: shopping, grocery slash eating out. And it has to do with 2 things. For shopping, we are humans. We are impulse. We're going to do impulse buying. That's usually what ends up hurting the shopping budget. Well, if you create a fun account and you have fun money to blow however which way you want within your budget, your shopping budget will remain relatively stable. But your fun money, where you can just literally light it on fire if you wanted to, that allows that impulse. That gives you that sense of, I can go do that if I want to, as opposed to, oh, that's in my shopping budget. Oh, that's a big enough budget. I'll be fine. I can just throw it in that category. Nope. Give yourself some fun money. Go have fun with it. Do whatever you want with it. That has nothing to do with pertaining to your normal shopping, groceries, bills, etc. Okay. That's how we nullify the shopping side. The other one we talk about a lot. I have a lot of conversations with clients on the grocery slash eating out. And I always ask them this question: do you like to cook or do you not like to cook? Right. I'm a cook. I love cooking. That's so my money, my overage is always going to be on buying meat. That's is what it is. Right. I know who I am. And the reason I ask that for people is there's nothing wrong with always eating out. There's nothing wrong with only eating in. The issue is when you do both. And that's where we all get in trouble, right?
Mm-hmm.
We
Right.
do both. We go to Costco, we buy all our groceries, and then we also go out to eat.
Yeah.
And those go down the drain. And kind of like the lettuce that I need to eat today, uh, I better get to it or else it's gone, right? And that's usually where we come up with the issue. And so I challenge my clients to, are you going to cook at home or are you going to eat out? And then we'll find that balance. So is it 70-30? Is it 60-40? Is it 50-50? Whatever it is, it's okay. Don't listen to the media. Don't listen to your friends and family. You can survive and still have a budget if you 100% ate out and didn't use your kitchen.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
can.
no, I think that is the problem because a lot of times you're like, oh, but my ideal version of myself cooks every meal at home
Oh.
and is always serving about, like, and I think that's what happens. And then we get in the pattern of we do the same thing every single week. So we go to the grocery store and we buy the same exact things at the same exact store. And then we throw out the bag of lettuce that goes to your, bin to die. And we don't change. But then when we look at the budget, you think, oh my gosh, I'm disgusting. How could I possibly have spent like this much here? And at Dunkin' Donuts and this place and that place. And it's just, you're right. It's better to just say, like, okay, like I am probably going to get a coffee on my way to work every day. I'm probably going to, bring my lunch in and then actually do it. I think we can be disciplined and stuff too if it is something that you like. But I think that is where the battle is. It's the ideal version of myself, you know, does this, but then real me tends to do that. So that's what you can benefit from looking backwards at the past 3 months, the past 6 months, and see what those patterns are. Same with shopping. Because I think a lot of times people, even if they're very, very disciplined, then will spend 10 grand on I've seen people who go very extreme where they're like, oh, well, she has a problem with spending, but I don't. But then the purchases are very large, or somebody's just trying to feel better
Mhm.
and then it's like, oh, I don't even know what I ordered from Amazon. I don't know what's showing up in that box. And so I think it's not necessarily a need. It's not like the people who are overspending on food are um s- starving if they don't, or same with shopping. It's not like these things are necessities, but I like the idea of a fun budget, or actually figuring out like, okay, am I a 50-50 person when it comes to that part of my budget, because it is an enormous amount of our spending. And I think a lot of the debt that people are going into, it's
Yes.
not on things that are actually investments or ever going to um bring back. They're not on assets necessarily. It's these it's these tiny things that add up that don't feel so big at the time.
Yes. One piece of advice, right? Don't go get a personal loan. Like, don't get a personal payday loan. Those usually are for poor things and they hurt you, right?
Mhm.
But you're right. There's good debt, bad debt. Good debt is things that we can use for investing to move us forward. Bad debt are the things that are really just an anchor on our lives. A lot of credit card debt, obviously, we all know that is usually bad debt. Personal loans, those are usually bad debt. Those Kohl's and all those credit cards that are very easy to get and they ask you every time to sign up,
Yeah.
those end up turning into bad debts. And so, but it all reverts back to, you mentioned discipline, which is two words I have for 2024: discipline and growth, right?
Mhm.
So I'm glad you threw that in there. But also, it comes back to how you are mentally and where you are emotionally. And if you can recognize that I'm not in a good spot, and usually when I'm not in a good spot, I go to Amazon, I go do this, I go make these decisions. And you can start to understand that, then you can start to have that discipline of, okay, I'm in this mindset. Fine. I'm going to go into my cupboard and find the cookies and eat them, as opposed to going to use my money to go purchase something else.
Yeah.
And that's really what again, full circle. It all comes back down to, if you have control of your emotions, you can control your money. If you have control of your money, it'll help control your emotions.
Yeah, definitely. And I think like, yeah, I think a lot of times before people work with somebody like us or think about engaging, they're like, they're going to tell me to stop
Yeah.
doing the things that I love. And I think that is very far from the truth. But I am going to try to identify the things that you love. And if it's not buying water bottles or random things that you don't really care about, like, then maybe we can, kind of set some limits around there, some guardrails around that to do more of the things that you actually really love. Because I don't know if you're seeing this, but a lot of my clients tell me that they'd like to travel, that they would like to do all these things, but they're not doing that with their money. They're
So,
doing other things with their money
correct.
than what they actually are telling me they would want to do, because they feel like, well, there's no money there for that. And so that's where I think budgeting can be really, really helpful, because we can then funnel that money towards something else. I have a budget in my business for coaching. I feel like working on my mindset and my brain is one of it is an investment to me, as far as where the value coming back has tended to be. And so I can say, can I increase this budget? can I do more here? And where, what does that look like necessarily? So I think it's a, I think it's a, it's important practice for everybody to try to do, and to try not to hate yourself,
Right.
because there's no point in that either, because shame will just lead you to do things that make you feel better, which we've already identified are probably eating and shopping.
Correct. Absolutely. And,
So,
and when we say budget, we mean like an average, and it changes. It doesn't have to, it's not rigid. It doesn't have to be what it is all year round. Like
yeah.
if all of a sudden you start to recognize in the first quarter that I don't really haven't spent anything in this category, well, then adjust the category and adjust something else. It's
Mhm.
okay to be changing and adapting as you grow as a person. That's very, very important to do.
Are there any tools that you like personally when it comes to budgeting that you use, or are you more of a, are you a spreadsheet, pen and paper kind of guy?
Oh, I mean, most CFPs, we're all nerds, so Excel sheets are the way we live by. But I've tried them all. I've tried all of the little tools. I've tried, we use Right Capital. I've have clients use that as well. And really, I don't really believe too much in an every month tracking uh, debate. Like I debate a lot about this. We do it for our clients and we'll send them a report, but really it's more quarterly is the conversation. Things don't really change that often in a month in terms of like drastically with you. Like we can't see it as much, but in a quarter we can. So I'm an Excel sheet person. That's who I am. I'm a nerd. But I will say though, if you are one of those that have the tools, there's some phenomenal. There's a lot of softwares out there for you,
Mhm.
specifically on the personal side that are free. If you're a business owner, QuickBooks has it all for you. So if you don't know QuickBooks, they do have a lot of tools that you don't have to know exactly everything, but they also have demos.
Yeah.
Uh, and some stuff that makes it relatively easy to
Some of
use.
the things are pretty easy if you are interested in looking at it. Even looking at some of your statements, they are breaking things down and showing you charts and categories. Like there's a lot of information out there that can be somewhat eye-opening if you're looking at it, like you said, from a quarterly basis or something like that. Um, to even just be onto yourself.
Correct.
And yeah, just curious. I know there's a lot of people that are looking for the system or the tool that works for them. And I think there's a lot out there to try, but a lot of times it's really just bringing awareness to it. There is no, necessarily simple solution.
Awareness and saying that I'm going to be disciplined to it. Really,
Mhm.
like I hate I. This is things that we talked about earlier about TikTok and all the people out there that are, I don't want to say they're in our industry, but they are giving opinions and saying this is the
Mhm.
quickest way to get rich and this is what you need to do. This is exactly how you have to do it. Um, it it's super simple. It's just awareness of who you are and then having the discipline not to do those things. And I
Yeah.
really hate to be the person that just is like they're like to burst bubbles and say there's a easy way to do this or an easy button to do it. There isn't. It's hard work
Yeah.
and it takes time and you have to be okay with that. Like this isn't like you understand it and you're good once you get it. It
Yeah.
is a lifelong journey, literally until the day you die, when
Mhm.
it comes to your money, when it comes to your mental health, because they're intertwined. You just have to learn and go as you go and you get older. There is no easy tool. There's no easy button and there's no concept or structure that will be there forever. It will change because you change.
Definitely. No, I agree. And I think that is unfortunate when the people are looking for the easy solution, the quick fix, the magic pill or whatever to figure things out. But it is important. It does get, I wouldn't say, I mean, I think with anything, if you become disciplined and trying to learn something new, whether it's a sport or an instrument or, fitness, anything like that, like eventually it does get to be easier that initial, and then you can kind of increase, how much you're doing or how intricate you're getting. If you're looking on, for a 90-second reel on advice and you're like, oh, okay, maybe my business should own this car, or maybe it's this big life insurance policy. And these are tools that some people may be using, but it's not necessarily, it's for the masses to try to get views. It isn't necessarily tailored financial advice, but I do think that, it is important to get the basics under control, to know yourself, know what your goals are, know what you enjoy doing, what you don't, whether it's cooking or,
Yeah.
if you want to get a subscription box to send you outfits to wear because you don't know what to do, like there could be room in your budget for all of those things, but I think it's super important to really, yeah, focus on yourself and understanding what those big goals are for you. So what are you mentioned your words for this year, some of your goals. So what's next for you, Stoy, when it comes to your vision at Black Mammoth and working with people this year?
This year is about growth, and like I said, discipline's more in, my realm and who I am. I want to get back to the discipline I had when I was a collegiate athlete, and I think that encompasses everything in life. But growth, on Black Mammoth side is mightily important. And I don't mean just by how many clients we have. I don't really track AUM. I don't care about investments or assets. I'm not talking about growth necessarily in that way. I'm talking about kind of what you had said off the air, and that is growing in terms of more speaking, more opportunities to communicate with people and have conversations. I'm really sick and tired of our industry hiding behind these commercials and investments and returns and all of that. And really, we need to be having these open conversations with everybody and getting them comfortable with the conversations, right? We had talked about the ultra wealthy. That's what they have already built into their family history. The rest of us don't, right? The majority of us do not have that. So who do you talk to? You're not going to talk to your friends and family typically, right? Your family doesn't talk about it, and your friends, well, we don't talk about money with friends, right? We just don't. And we need to make that conversation comfortable. And so when I mean growth specifically for Black Mammoth, all the other things need to happen, but really it comes down to being able to have more conversations with people who want to have a conversation, right? In a very judge free zone. None of you, my friends, my colleagues, we're ever going to do that. We just want to have a really good conversation. And at some point, hopefully that helps you to either take the next step with you, with me, with somebody, or at least take that next step in their own personal journey of saying, okay, I can handle this.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I'd love for you to tell our listeners how to find more about you, your business, your podcast. I do think, and I loved the 12 Days of Giving series that I was lucky enough to participate in at the end of last year. I do think that there's so much good information, and a lot of the content you're sharing is very, very helpful for anybody who's trying to, either think differently, figure out, what might be next for them, or to even to just understand that this is not, wealth and success is not just for the people who've always had it, that there are, it could be, changing generational wealth and shifting it. It might start with us. And we might have to do the heavy lift
Yeah.
for people in our family in order for them to benefit. So how can people find out more about you?
Yeah, absolutely. You can go to my website, blackmammoth.com. Obviously, is one way to go. I'm on all the socials. Okay. So your Facebooks, your LinkedIn's. Yes, I'm on TikTok,
Mhm.
your Instagrams, all over the place. And all I ask of everyone is obviously likes and views and shares are great, but comment, please. I'm open for conversations. I want to help. And if you are one who is like, I want to be more anonymous because you don't want it public, then message me directly. I create content to answer those things, right? To answer people's questions. That way you can get that answer for you. So go ahead and reach out everywhere. No BS Wealth Podcast is on all of your podcast places, Spotify, Apple, you name it. We have episodes that come out usually once a week. Just get back into those and go ahead and actually go back to the 12 days of giving series. It was phenomenal. And Missy doesn't know this, but I'm putting a report together and sending it out to everyone of, the viewership and how it turned out, but it was phenomenal. So if you want to, I'm everywhere. Just reach out. I'm an open book. And if there's things or people on the podcast or my content that you want to know more about, they're also open books and I will connect you. Just take that next step and reach out to one of us.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It was a pleasure speaking with you again. And thank you all so much for listening. If you're interested in learning more, listening to other episodes of the podcast, please feel free to head over to mistylynch.com. Or if you'd like to connect, please find the scheduling link on that website. I'd love to talk to you if you feel like this is the year that you'd like to get your finances under control. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk again next week.